Welcome, everybody, to the Thursday edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show, the JWB Rental Income Property of the Week. We're going to 8625 India Ave, where we're going to get you India a house with brand new construction, zero annual homeowners association, HOA dues, and we'll have a 2 to 3 year lease signed and deliver over 7.8% estimated ROI. Speaking of us going back and forth, today we're going to be going back and forth on the Thursday edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. We are officially live on Facebook for the JWB Rental Income Property of the Week.
Week.
I am your host, Pablo Gonzalez. My co-host, as always, the man that they call GC because of his genius concepts, because he generates cash flows, because he's a great co-host, and because his name coincidentally happens to be Gregg Cohen. Say hello, Gregg.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the POT Dubs Thursday edition.
Welcome to the POT Dubs. Welcome, John Hanning. Welcome, Carl Thompson. Welcome, Leo from California. Welcome back, Mark Larrett. Welcome, Bill Shields on a soggy jump day. Is it rainy in Jacksonville? Is that what's going on?
It is, man. It's like 55 degrees, 60 degrees and raining here, which is just totally unique. What are we? Is this like February or May? I don't get it.
I don't know, man. I thought Jacksonville being the San Diego of the East, I thought it didn't rain there or something like that. Welcome back, Nadeem. Welcome, Eddie Harris from Hotlanta. Welcome, Sharday Nix. Good to have you here. I think that's a new name I don't recognize. Welcome back, Greg Stone. Who else we got? Lee Bishop is in the house. Jake Hargrove with his yo. It is good to have you back, Jake. And welcome, Jay Patel as well. Another name that I don't recognize. As you will soon learn, for those of you that are new here, this is a audience-driven show. And there's two ways to participate with us. One is the chat, which is fabulously already going strong, and it'll continue to go strong throughout the whole call. There's a little trick to the chat. It is defaulted to only speak to Greg and I, GC and me, as the movie will be called. And in order for everybody else to see it, which is something we recommend, because there's a lot of actual bonds that are happening in this chat as the shows go on, and there's just a lot of shared knowledge in this chat of like really savvy investors, people that have been here for a long time, people that you can talk to. You want to switch from panelists only to panelists and attendees in that little blue box right above you. Lou Kresge from Santa Cruz, California. Love that area, man. Welcome. But you're only speaking to us, right? So you want to hit that blue button right above, change the panelists and attendees. Everybody else can see what you're writing. You can make a new name. Margaret Smith, welcome back. She is she's a regular already chatting here. And then the other way, the way that you get your question asked on the show to GC, the man himself, or me, if you want a lesser, better opinion, is to pop open the Q&A box. That's a whole nother thing. And the reason why I asked that is not for anything other than my limited 2 eyes and attention span. In the Q&A box, it just stays in front of me. It's a lot harder for me to miss it, while like you'll see here in the chat, it's going to fly. So sometimes I got to scroll back up. Sergio is in the house. Good to see you, Sergio. Go Gators. And last but not least, if you want to follow along at home, you want to look at this property, you want to play with the same spreadsheet that I'm playing with, which is a lot of fun. We call it fiddling with the spreadsheet and looking at the numbers. Go to jwbinventory.com. I'm going to put it here in the chat. JWB Inventory. I'm going to mess it up if I don't just stop real quick. Inventory.com. And you're able to download that spreadsheet and the past property of the weeks, and you can follow along and mess around with it the same way that we're fiddling over here. That's it. Ready to kick this thing off, Greg? You ready?
Let's do it. And I just wanted to make a special mention for everybody to go to jwbinventory.com right now. There's nothing that you have to do. You don't have to give away information. We did this really with the show in mind so that you guys could follow along with the spreadsheet. It came from feedback that you guys had to have access to the spreadsheet while we're going through it. So everybody, if you're logging in on your computer right now, just go to jwbinventory.com. You'll see the exact spreadsheet of this one on India that we're going to go through. So we will see you there and here at the same time.
We will see you there and here. And without further ado, let's bring it on. Let's bring on the house we want to get India here. 8625 India Avenue, Jacksonville, Florida, 32211. It looks like a beautiful 4-bedroom, 2.5 house. Clearly, this right off the bat is yelling new construction to me, but we'll get into that because of this real pretty picture here. Purchase price of $215,000. I'm describing this for our friend that's joining us on the podcast in a week so that they're able to see what we're talking about. And it is 4-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom house, 1-car garage, a lease of between $1,375 to $1,425 a month. And the star, what you really are buying here. You're not just buying a house. You are buying this cash flow here, this estimated conventional financing, total monthly cash flow of $154, and this estimated conventional financing total ROI of 7.88. GC, you want to talk us through before you talk us through this, I just want to say, bring on the questions, right? Like as soon as you start popping in the questions early and often, I'll start interrupting GC and we'll start answering them right away. This is the most interactive show that we do. So we want that Q&A to light up. In the meantime, we got plenty of stuff to talk about on this beautiful property. GC, why don't you tell us, first of all, what does that total monthly cash flow represent?
Total monthly cash flow is really important. There's two metrics that I want you to look at when you're evaluating a rental income property. And the first one is total monthly cash flow, because the question that you're answering is this an asset that is going to pay for itself every single month? And one of the most beautiful things about rental properties is that you're able to acquire an asset. You're able to take out smart debt on it, which actually increases your expenses, and the income from the rents more than cover those expenses. In fact, actually pay you every single month. And there's just not a lot of assets out there that can claim that fact right there. So when you see $154 a month of an estimated monthly cash flow, that's what that should communicate to you. This asset pays for itself every single month. And that's really important, because if you're like most clients of JWB and most property investors, you have some goals that you want to accomplish through this monthly passive income that you're hoping to achieve. And usually your goals are going to dictate that you have to buy more than one property. You have to buy 3, 5, 10, whatever those goals are. And so if you're thinking about making this scalable, getting to 5 properties or 10 properties, it's even more important that this is an asset that pays for itself, because you don't want to create a liability for yourself every single month. You don't want to create one more bill to pay for yourself. And if you have 10 properties, that might be 10 bills to pay, right? If this was negative cash flow, that might be 10 bills to pay every single month. So the first and most important thing is to make sure that it's the monthly cash flow is positive, that it's paying for itself. And of course, that's what you see here on this house on India.
There you go, Greg. That's the term scalable investing, I feel like, is something that you've been hitting on lately, but it wasn't something you were always talking about it. But I like it, man. Like I love the idea of, as long as it's cash flow positive, as long as it pays for itself, and you're not counting on something to go well outside of the investment, that it becomes scalable, right? Because it's something that once you got it keyed in, it's set and forget to a certain extent, and you're not, I look back at the 2006 days of pre-construction in Miami, where people were just like betting on hyperinflation and betting on things to happen, and really carrying a burden of negative cash flow because of a payout later on. But this isn't that, right? So the $154 a month represents the scalable investment, and it represents $150 in your pocket on an average month. What is the difference between that $150 a month and this 7.88% total ROI for conventional financing?
So that total monthly cash flow we were just talking about, roughly that estimated $150 a month, that's the monthly cash flow you're going to receive on a normal month, meaning when your rental income comes in, you've got your principal payments, your interest payments, your taxes, and your insurance. Your property taxes is what I'm talking about, and your property insurance costs, and your monthly property management fees. That's the vast majority of months as a rental property owner with JWB. So that's that threshold. On a normal month, is it going to be cash flow positive? And that's a great thing, because like you mentioned, that is the difference between how people were successful in rental property investing, even if they bought in 2006, like I started to buy in 2006. How did I weather the storm of the Great Recession and still own those properties today? Well, it's because they were cash flow positive. I wasn't betting and speculating on appreciation. So that is really critical to answer that question. However, if you only look at it from a monthly cash flow perspective, that's a very myopic viewpoint of rental properties. There's actually 5 profit centers, and net rental income or positive cash flow, I mean the same thing, that's only one of those profit centers. So you need to expand your horizons. You need to take those cash flow blinders off and look at the total return on investment. The total return on investment takes your other profit centers into account. It also takes into account the expenses that will happen at some point over time. They don't happen every single month. So what you're doing is you're taking some really good things in the total return on investment. You're taking some really good things, the other profit centers. You're taking into account your estimated tax savings and your principal pay down. And you're also taking into account the bad things, right? The expenses that come along the way in terms of maintenance costs, vacancy costs, tenant placement fees. We're also taking into account your closing costs as well. So we're taking all the good things. We're taking, well, most of the good things actually, all the bad things as well. We're putting all that together over what your initial investment is. And that's how you wind up with over a 7.8% return there.
There you go. So that is the whole picture of how the money that you're putting in will perform over time, taking in 4 of the 5 profit centers, right? Like the appreciation, we have not talked about that. But before we get to this appreciation rate, right? Like Nadeem Shaw is putting here in the chat, beautiful house. I agree. It is a beautiful house. It looks like we teased it, right? This is a new construction home. This is one of these like floor plans that you recognize from JWB from a mile away because it's so pretty and typical Americana, perfect place to live. Tell us a little bit about the fact that this is new construction, Gregg. What's going on with new construction right now?
So if those of you who have been following along with the show, the last 2 weeks, we've had brand new construction homes that we put as the property of the week. That's a little unique. We haven't had 2 brand new construction homes that we've done back-to-back weeks of the property of the week. So that is reflective of some new construction inventory. The number of new construction inventory that is going to be available in the coming weeks and months will be slightly higher than what we've seen in the past. This has been the expectation that we laid out with everybody on the show really over the last 6 months, was that, we had a tremendous amount of lots that we have designed and put in for permitting with the building department. And the building department for many, many, many months now has been really slow to release those lots. JWB has a commitment that we are not going to sell a property to a client, even though we own it and we could sell it. We're not going to sell it until that there's a permit on that lot, as well as some other things that come along with like site prep to make sure that this is something that can be completed in a relatively short period of time. And so last time we checked in, that process was really slow with the building department. Guess what? Still really slow with the building department. But the simple reality is that we had over 250 lots in for permitting with the building department. We're still over 200 lots that are in for building permits just to be stamped. And the reality is that we've had them in for so long, sometimes for 5 months now, 6 months now, that they're starting to come through. And this is a great thing, right? So I thought it was a really cool thing for us to be able to showcase 2 brand new construction properties over the last couple of weeks. Just because we're looking at something and your eyes look at this brand new construction home, I don't want you to just say, geez, this is the best thing since sliced bread, right? I want you to still keep your investor hat on and make decisions based on the 5 profit centers. And there's a reason why in my own portfolio, I have more renovated homes than new construction homes. It's because I love them both. They both deliver the best risk-adjusted returns on investment. They both get you to between 7 to 9% returns, not counting home price appreciation. But the reality is when you can look at a beautiful home like this, it's easy on the eyes. And so that's a wonderful thing for people.
It is a wonderful thing, man. So what I'm hearing though is breaking news that there seems to be like the dam is kind of like loosening up on what's been stopping these new construction homes from happening. We're going to see some more new construction homes coming into the mix as far as the percentage, at least in the short term. And that's what we're starting to predict. I would assume that means that supply is going to start to go up a little bit in Jacksonville. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Oh, you're going way too far, Pablo. You really are.
Okay.
The reality, this is not a function of things loosening up. This is a function of them being very slow for like 6 months now. And at some point they have to come through. So they're still coming through in very small numbers. I wish I could tell you that I thought that this was going to loosen up and that all 200 of those permits were going to be approved in, 30 days or so, like they usually are. I don't see that happening. So I don't think this changes as far as the supply of inventory. I think that would be too optimistic at this point. I mean, the reality is that we have inventory for everybody. So that's not a concern, but I don't see that there's going to be this huge rush of inventory. I think that there'll be a slightly higher percentage of new construction than renovations, but you're going to see both, in my opinion.
Okay, sounds good. I had my dad in here handling some technical issues. If you saw me talking to somebody, but yeah, okay. So business as usual. JWB is going to start having some, just because you've been steadily waiting in line. There's going to be more on the not to average investor show, more likely, but not in the macro business of Jacksonville.
Not much changes. I mean, you're looking at inventory. So like every month it gets harder and harder to find existing inventory, to find renovated homes. So every single month it gets harder and harder to do that. That's the reality of this inventory, what we're in as a real estate market. Supply is lower and lower every single month. So that gets harder every single month, right? Do we have a few more new construction homes coming out to offset that? Yes. So overall inventory levels are going to be roughly the same. But the other thing is that demand continues to go higher and higher and higher. Every month, JWB sells more properties than we did the previous month. So you take all those things into consideration. I think people should have the same outlook as they did prior to this conversation when it comes to inventory with JWB. Number one, we have inventory. Number two, the inventory is going to be positive cash flow from day one. It's going to be the best risk-adjusted return, but overall inventory is scarce and this is the best time to be buying. So nothing really changes. And, we're building 600 homes. So hopefully at some point here in the coming weeks and months, I can give you that thumbs up that the funnel has been opened by the building department, but we're just not there yet.
All right. Sounds good, man. Let's get into some questions. We already got them pouring in. I love it. So we got a question from Lou Kresge. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Lou. Let me know. He asks, on rentals, I am typically a cash buyer. Can you touch on how this impact the total return for a buyer like me? Can we go over this estimated? I'm assuming that's here, Greg, right? The estimated cash purchase total monthly cash flow and the estimated cash purchase total ROI.
Absolutely, Lou. Thanks so much for being here and for shedding a light on cash purchases. For many clients, cash purchases are the right thing to do. And, there's the opportunity to use financing, and that is the best way to maximize your 5 profit centers, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing for you. And Lou, it sounds like it's not. It sounds like a cash purchase is the right thing. For anybody who has questions on whether cash or financing is the right play for you, I would really suggest that you reach out to my team and we can have that conversation and kind of guide you down the path. But for you, Lou, we're going to take a look at that top section there, that estimated cash purchase total monthly cash flow. You're going to see a really large number there, $935 a month. All right, that's what you should expect on a normal month. And the big difference between what we saw with that estimated conventional financing total monthly cash flow and the estimated cash purchase total monthly cash flow is the fact that you don't have a mortgage payment. So, on the financing side, your cash flows are lower. $150 a month, roughly estimated. On the cash purchase side, your cash flows are a lot higher, which is wonderful. More income each month coming to you because you don't have a mortgage payment. The interesting thing that not a lot of people think through is, what is your total return on investment? Although you have higher cash flows, Lou, when you buy a property with cash, you have to put more money into the property. You bought it 100% with cash. So your money, all of your money is in the deal rather than a fraction of it. When you actually run the numbers, you're going to see a lower return on investment simply because you had so much money in the deal. And so that 5.2% estimated return on investment is taking into account your profit centers for everything other than home price appreciation. It's taking into account tax savings because you still do have that. It's not taking into account principal pay down because you didn't have a loan. You didn't have a loan and it wasn't being paid down by your resident. So you take all those profit centers into account, not including home price appreciation. And even though you have higher cash flows, your return on investment is actually lower than what you'll see for conventionally financed. And that's a really important, critical realization there. The other thing to take into account is the effect of home price appreciation. If you're buying in cash versus if you're buying with conventional financing, probably you think it's a good time to kind of go into that realm.
Why don't we? I think that that's a great idea, buddy.
And this would be awesome because Lou is a cash purchase. He's a cash buyer of rental properties. Lou, let's go down this path. And what Pablo is going to do here is under our property assumptions tab. Again, I hope everybody is following along at home by going to JWB Inventory. If you do that, you can download this exact same spreadsheet. It's ready and available for you.
Yeah.
If
And
you
Greg,
go
if I can put a pause there real quick, just to let people kind of take time to do that, right? Go to jwbinventory.com if you haven't done that, right? Like we normally hit critical capacity in our calls right around now. So there's people that didn't hear that before. Go to jwbinventory.com. You can download the spreadsheet yourself and do it. And I also want to tap back to what you said, right? When you started answering this, if you want a customized answer to whatever your situation is, right? Like if you're thinking cash versus not cash, if you're thinking new construction versus rehab, which I'm seeing in the questions and the comments, the best place is just go to chatwithjwb.com. It's an easy schedule. You'll hop on a call with Courtney. You'll get your own focused kind of analysis of this, not salesy, just very informational, and you'll enjoy it. So I wanted to buy a little bit of a time for our friends to go to jwbinventory.com. Hopefully you've done that. And now, Greg, tell us about cash and home price appreciation and all that other good stuff.
Well, can I put in one more request for you before we go down that path? Why don't you just show them what jwbinventory.com looks like?
Why don't we do that? I'm going to stop sharing here and go to jwbinventory.com and then reshare my screen as soon as it's ready. Can you see it?
I can.
You can, yeah. So you see here it says property of the week in the exact tone that you would want to have it. And when you go here to 8625 India, read more, you click it. And when you scroll down, I think you're able to download the sheet here.
You got it, brother.
Yeah.
Our wonderful marketing team had that ready to go this morning for sure.
There you go. Here's the sheet. You just click it, you download it. It tells you to do it. So yeah, wonderful marketing team had it ready to go. So no excuses. And then over here, there's this will also take you to chatwithjwb.com, the schedule now thing, right?
There you go.
All right. Now back to the property. Let's talk appreciation and cash versus not cash.
Yes. So when we're talking home price appreciation, there's really big misconceptions about how to evaluate it and how to use it to make the right decision for you. The best way to evaluate home price appreciation is to understand that real estate cycles happen. A cycle, by definition, means that things return to the norm, like things happen again. And when you're talking about real estate cycles, home price appreciation levels repeat themselves if you give it a 10 to 20-year cycle. So you can look back over time, and we look back over 30 years, and we see what is the historically accurate home price appreciation rate in Jacksonville. And then the thought process is, if you're a buy and hold investor and you're in for the next 10 to 20 years, which I am, which is what I advise for our clients, then you can use that same historically accurate home price appreciation rate, and you're going to be pretty close to that average appreciation rate that you're going to see every single year. So putting some numbers to it, if you go to the Federal Housing Finance Agency's website, you actually do the research, you'll find that Jacksonville's historically accurate home price appreciation rate is about 4.3% per year. And so if you put 4.3% there in the home price appreciation rate there under the property assumptions, which Pablo is doing, you're going to see a couple things happen. We'll first talk about there you go, Pablo. Thanks for zooming in there. We'll first talk about the cash purchase side for Lou, right? For his wonderful question here. The total return on investment almost doubled, right? It went up about 4.3, it went up 4.3% minus a little bit of closing costs there, right? So it went up from about 5% to about 9.5%. Okay. So what you're seeing here is, if you bought an asset and it goes up 4.3% for that year, you're going to earn 4.3% basically as a return on investment just from that home price appreciation. That should make sense for everybody, right? What throws a lot of people here, and what's so critical to get, is the power of smart debt, especially in this environment. The power of smart leverage, using somebody else's money to your advantage, is what happens with that conventional financing total return on investment. That total return on investment for conventional financing skyrocketed from about 7.8% to almost 23.5%. It went up a lot more than the return on investment if you bought it with cash. And nothing changed in the deal other than the fact that you used debt. And the realization here is that when your market value goes up, call it 4%, if you only have 25% as a down payment, your return on investment from that home price appreciation is not 4% like it was in cash. It is actually 16%, because it's 4% of the return on the asset, but you only had 25% of your money in the deal. And when you think about that on a grand scale, especially knowing that many times it takes multiple rental properties to get to your monthly passive income goal, that should really excite people on this call. Pablo, I know it had a dramatic effect on you in the plan that we put together, right?
Yeah, big time effect on me. Like the idea that I can get my money, not just my money working for me, but use my money to get more money working for me, and seeing that come to fruition week after week here when we would do this little magical trick of putting in the appreciation under the conventional finance, not only made me decide that I wanted to go conventional financing, but it also made me think that I want to put 20% down as opposed to 25% down, because I'm not seeking the cash flow as much as the ROI on the money long term.
Exactly. You're thinking about all 5 profit centers, not just monthly cash flow, which is great. A lot of people don't do that.
Yeah, correct. And I guess we'll follow up with here. Lee Bishop puts in the Q&A, he puts the difference between cash and conventional is the difference between the 5 profit centers, right? I don't think it's the difference between the 5 profit centers between cash and conventional, but it does, when you account for the 5 profit centers, then it informs the decision much better, right?
Yeah, you get so much more impact from the 5 profit centers when you know how to use other people's money, when you use smart debt, right? You get a much bigger bump from home price appreciation, just like we talked about there. You actually get a bigger benefit from tax savings as well, because your write-off from depreciation fully takes into account the positive cash flow that you get when you have conventional financing. The write-off for depreciation in a cash purchase doesn't account for all of the positive cash flow, right? Let's call it $900 a month, right? It's whatever, $10,000-ish a year or whatever. You do the math on it, right? Your depreciation write-off on this property is not $10,000. So you get the full benefit from a tax savings component when you have debt on the property, right? Inflation hedging is another really important thing. Inflation is in the news, right? I'm sure everybody has read an article about all of the money that we're pumping into the economy and the fact that the economy is recovering. And then you're seeing commodities prices soar right now. And everybody's wondering, like, what does that mean for inflation? Well, there's not a better thing to do than to own a physical asset and to have smart debt in place in an inflationary environment, because as inflation happens, your dollars go farther. Your dollars for paying debt go farther, right? The debt stays the same, right? The dollars you earn should go up, and that makes it easier for you to pay down the debt long term. So there's not a better thing to be in than a hard asset and to take out smart debt when you are facing really big inflation, which is what a lot of people think is going to happen.
Yeah, I can tell you that inflation has been very much part of the conversation of what I hear happen. Like I'm visiting my parents for the week, right? Like they're in their retirement phase and have a cash flow and whatever. And inflation is a heavy topic that we've been talking about here. So that's cool. Is the inflation hedge represented anywhere in this spreadsheet?
It is not. It could be. I could add it, but inflation hedging is just a really tough topic for people to really kind of wrap their heads around. And, rental properties in general, trying to teach folks about the 5 profit centers, I found to be relatively difficult in general as well. And when you start really looking at even 4 of the 5 profit centers and you see that you can earn over a 20% return on investment when you use smart leverage on conventional financing, it's like they're really necessary to add in something that is relatively complex to put the numbers to. So no, inflation hedging is just an additional bonus that's not represented here.
Makes sense. I feel like I do feel like with the amount of news that has to do with inflation, maybe we spent an episode on teaching the numbers behind inflation hedging. I think it would be really, really interesting if you're up for it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So other things that we're going to do, we got a question here from Harish Vakaria. Harish, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, and welcome to the show. Harish asks, is this home built and ready to be rented, or what's the ETA on completion?
Harish, great question. Thanks so much for being a part of the show. It's like you're in the minds of Pablo and I pre-show, because what I was explaining to Pablo is that this picture that I'm showing you here is what the house will look like after it is built. If I was to show you a picture of exactly what the house looks like right now, you would see a vacant lot with some form boards in place and ready to go vertical. But no, the house is not built at this moment. This is the exact model for the house that will be built. This is a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 1,665 square foot home. And the picture that you see is actually a couple streets over. So same neighborhood is going to be built by the same builder, and it's going to look almost identical. This concept of buying a property that is not fully built out should feel very normal to people now, right? Everybody is really trying to do their best. Like investors generally are trying to do their best to acquire inventory. And there's just an inventory shortage out across the entire market. JWB, we're in a really good position for inventory long-term. And in the short run, we're in a good position for inventory as well. You know, the building department has really thrown a wrinkle in that as much as they possibly could, because they held up permits for so long, which we've chronicled here on the show. But ultimately what's happening is folks are buying properties that will be finished, let's just say in maybe the next 3 to 4 months. So these are during construction. The lot is already owned by JWB. We already have the permit received. The site preparation has already been done on the lot, and it's in the process of going vertical. And at the moment, that's when we start to make homes available for purchase.
There you go. When you first talked about this, right, my head immediately went to pre-construction, right? Like the idea of investing in a pre-construction unit, having come up in Miami in the early 2000s, right? Like that was flying off the shelves, and it had kind of a bad stigma. But have you explained this? It's a little bit different, right? Like this is not a pre-construction spec condo. Can you kind of like talk about the difference between what pre-construction is and what this is?
So different. Let's just start with if you were an investor in 2006, what were you investing in, right? The reason why so many of those condos didn't actually get built when the market crashed. Well, it's because what you were investing in, if you were buying pre-construction, let's just call it condos in Miami in 2006, the condo wasn't built yet, right? The company that was selling this was selling things that weren't built, weren't even started, weren't even permitted, weren't even going vertical yet. It wasn't during construction, it was pre-construction. What they were doing is trying to sell out as much as they could from, 500 buyers to be able to get that capital. They needed that capital as far as those deposits. And then those deposits were then used to raise more capital for that company that was going to do this big condo building. And they needed all this to work with the market continuing to go up so that the numbers would work, so that the builder could get the financing. And so then ultimately the buyer of the condo would complete the purchase. But let's go back a few steps. What was the buyer of the condo buying? They were speculating, right? Even if they closed on that condo and we put the numbers on this spreadsheet right here, it would be cash flow negative because the condo prices were probably $350,000 or $500,000 or whatever they were, and the rental income wasn't high enough to the first threshold of total monthly cash flow. So what happened was completely different, right? The company that was arranging this whole thing needed to get hundreds of investors to buy into this. The way to get the money to actually build this thing out, they needed the lenders to feel comfortable. So in order for that to happen, the market values had to stay high in order for that to happen, for them to get the capital to build it out. And then for the end buyer to actually follow through on it, the market value still needed to stay the same or go higher. Otherwise, they were going to complete their purchase. None of that is similar to what you see here for a JWB property. Like, for example, number one, JWB already owns this asset. We already have the lending in place on this asset. We don't have to go for any more financing to complete the asset. The builder has already started the process of building this asset. It's during construction rather than pre-construction. The end buyer who's buying this asset is buying it for multiple reasons, all 5 profit centers. And number one is just how we started this show. It's an asset that pays for itself every single month. That is the best risk mitigation strategy that you have in investing, is does it pay for itself every single month? And so the end buyer is doing that, or is getting that. And that's why they're one of the reasons they're investing in this property. And then the timeline as well, right? If you were buying a new construction condo in 2006 in Miami, you put your money down today, and in 3 years, you were expecting to actually close on the condo that you put your money down on. Here, you're going to put your deposit down. If you were to choose this property to purchase, it's already happening. It's already being built right now. And then, typically 3 to 4 months is what it takes from that time for us to complete the build.
There you go. So totally different experience, way quicker cash flow, way less variation. Like it was the Wild West back then, man. It was just like an architect had a picture and it's like, who wants money on this thing? Very, very different. Okay, great. So real quick, when will this house be ready, Gregg? I answered in the chat, probably like 90 to 100 days kind of ish. Is that kind of the timeline for when this house will be ready?
I'd say 3 to 4 months is pretty standard from the time that we start to make them available for you. JWB has already owned it. As I mentioned, they already have the permit on it. There's usually about months of work that goes from the time we have the permit on it to the time that we're going to make it available, that site prep work and some other things that we're going to do. What we're doing internally is we know that we can make those available and clients would buy them left and right. And that may help the inventory issues that people may be seeing and all that good stuff. But it's still not a good thing for our clients long-term and for JWB long-term. We would rather wait an extra 2 months to make sure that all of those variables when it comes to construction, or most of them, have been solved, right? That site prep time, there's a lot of things that can kind of delay the timing of when the house is actually going to go vertical. So we actually delay it before offering it to a client to make sure this experience is wonderful for you going through it. Then we're going to offer this one just like we did here. And that site prep has been done. And then, typically about 3 to 4 months from that time is how long it will take for the builder to complete the construction on it.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. So this is available. So the purchasing cycle of this right now would be you go to chatwithjwb.com if you like this house. You're going to get on a call with the team. You're going to go through the 4 calls with JWB, right? So that'll take a couple of weeks. Then you'll start getting approved for financing, right? You won't close on this thing probably for like 45 to 60 days once you're there to begin with, right? So like it'll be, let's call it 2 months before you're closing on this thing. Is there a gap before the resident moves in? Am I doing that math incorrectly in my head?
Most likely no. So all this is done in conjunction, right? At the time that we can start to market this home for rent, we're already on it. And that's before you're actually closing on the home many times. And our average days on market right now is 12 and a half days on market. I kind of posted this in the Facebook group not too long ago. 12 and a half days on market to rent out a home is our average right now. And that's incredibly low. So most of the time, there's not going to be a gap. And so I even feel strong enough telling folks that you should expect positive cash flow from day one when you come to purchase this home here. And I stand by that because my leasing team is excellent. Got it.
Sweet. Great. So you can expect positive cash flow day one, even with this house that's going to get going. So totally different than pre-construction that I was referring to.
Well, totally. But I always like to use this show as a forum for what's coming next. And a theme that you have heard Pablo and I talk about here is that the time for buying rental properties is better today than it will be 1 year from now. Because as interest rates go up, home prices continue to go up like we expect, that's going to bring positive cash flow down. Well, that's also what's going to happen over the next year is the inventory crisis is not going to get better. And when I say inventory crisis, I'm talking about macro. I'm not talking about JWB. We do have inventory, but the inventory crisis is going to get worse before it gets better because it's not going to easily be solved. You're not going to see a decrease in demand in the short run, we don't believe. And you're not going to see enough supply coming online in the short run to offset the demand. What's going to happen is positive cash flow from day one is not a right. It's not always going to be there. It has been what JWB has been able to do for years and years and years now. But as I start to think about where the market is going, you're starting to see different things happen, right? We talked about how appraisals are in a tough spot right now because appraisers are backwards looking by definition. They need to look at what homes have appraised for over the last, call it 3 to 6 months. Well, if you're appraising your house today, what happened 3 to 6 months ago for a sale may be very different than what your market value is today. And it's causing appraisal issues. We haven't had appraisal issues in large parts in a long time. Well, we're having more appraisal issues than what's happening. And then what's happening is clients are making the decision to bring the difference to closing in order to be able to acquire the asset because you may have an appraisal issue. So that's one of those things that is going in this direction of rental property investing today is going to be better than what it is a year from now. I think how strong I come with positive cash flow day one, it's very real today, but I don't expect it to be that way in the future. You're going to see a lot of little things be less advantageous for rental property investing in the future, just because that's what the market is dictating, right? That is the reality of it. So again, the urgency that I want everybody to have is to look at this. If you're considering this for your portfolio, this is the best time to be doing it. And you're not going to hear me say in 2 years that 2 years from now is the best time. You're going to hear me say, you know what, 2 years ago was the best time because your interest rates were at 4% and your home values were less. 2 years from now, you know what I'm going to say though? There's still a place for rental properties in your portfolio, most likely, because I'm going to compare it to your other asset classes and see where the advantages are. But I can tell you, as a rental property investor, I have been in this game for 15 years now. I was in it in the heights of 2006. I was in it, known properties in the depths of 2010 when values dropped, and I'm in it now again. And I can tell you there are various points in time when it's really advantageous and your returns, your risk-adjusted returns on investment are better at certain points in time. They are better today than they will be 1 year from now or 2 years from now, largely because of interest rates, home prices, and a few other things that are just going to be harder and harder for suppliers to be able to provide.
Yeah, man, that was what came loud and clear to me on that first time when we had Richie on, and he was a VP of mortgage, and he was talking about how this is like a historic opportunity, and it's only continued to crescendo. That idea that we are in that like 2010, 2011 moment where everybody's going to come back, and every guest that we've had on here that bought a couple houses 2010, 2011 is like, I just wish I would have bought more in 2010, 2011, right? So I feel like we're in this moment where in 2-3 years, the asset will perform in relation to other asset classes, but everybody's going to be like, yeah, I should have just doubled down in 20.
Well, let's compare it to 2010 versus now. In 2010, home prices were low, but your interest rates were higher than they are today. And your months of inventory was higher than what it is today. Months of inventory is a leading indicator for future home price increases. So and I don't have the numbers in front of me. It was probably like 4 to 5 to 6 months of inventory in 2010. It was probably actually higher in 2010, probably 20. I know in 2014, when we started to track months of inventory, it was around 3 to 4 months of inventory, right? So at that point, like comparing that to right now, we have less than 1 month of real inventory on the market right now. And you don't have a solution for that. Builders are not going to build enough to overcome that. So you have higher interest rates in 2010 and you have more inventory in 2010. So if you compare that buying opportunity to right now you have even less supply, which drives prices up, and you have the lowest interest rates in history. So that's why I come so strong and tell people, if you're considering this, you should be acting on it now. You really should. And I'm going to be around on the show in the next 2 years. So you're going to be able to call me out on it if I'm wrong, but I'm telling you, this is the way that JWB is managing our own money. And this is what we share with our clients.
Oh man, 2 to 3 years from now, we're going to be on episode like 400 of the Not Your Average Investor Show. I can't even imagine it, right? Like this is actually episode 100. we
No
should have,
way.
yeah, we should have done like a big deal thing. This is episode 100. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right, Greg, real quick, because we've got a ton of great questions in the Q&A. How
Yep.
are you on time today? Do we need to aim for 1:30 stop or what are we tracking to here?
Yeah. We're going to need to
All
try
right.
to
All
do
right,
it.
then let's knock it out. Laura McElroy asks, curious, what is average construction cost per square foot there on new construction?
Oh man. I don't know. No, I'm going to do the numbers real quick. I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing about maybe $65 a square foot or $70 a square foot or so on this property.
Okay.
Roughly around there.
All right. Shanti Pal asks, is this the only property available for now, or are there a few more?
Shanti, thank you so much for that question. One of the beautiful things is why we show this property of the week is because this is very reflective of all of the inventory that we have at JWB. So, sometimes these properties actually get purchased from the time that we start to go through the process of preparing this property for the property of the week to the time when we actually show it. Here, it might be purchased. And what I share with people is if it is, great. If it isn't, great. You should be calling my team because we have a number of other properties just like this one that are available. And so we use this as a teaching tool more than anything, more than just a sales tool. You don't see Pablo and I getting up here trying to hawk this property. It's because the bigger win here is using this as a teaching tool. If it happens to be one that you're interested in, you can reach out to my team and start those conversations. And the bigger thing is we want you to be excited about the model here, because if you're excited about the model, there's going to be another property, very similar numbers, same types of neighborhoods that's going to be available for you.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's widgets, right? Like it is the idea that what you are buying is this, the conventional ROI, the conventional cash flow, whatever way you're investing it in. It's this, the confidence in hitting these numbers, what you're buying, not so much this, the picture of the house, right? Like that is what I've learned about doing this, being on 100 episodes of the show. Now I can say that and seeing you explain it through about how basically what JWB does is the same thing over and over, and you control for variables and you vertically integrate your business model as much as you can so that you can always under promise and over deliver. Very cool, man. Lou Kresge has another question. Thanks for answering about cash purchase. Does JWB arrange the conventional financing on your properties?
Lou, great question. The answer is yes. When you invest with JWB, we want this to be passive. Hopefully you want this to be passive. Part of the reason you're coming to us is because you want to work with a team that can handle all aspects of the investment for you under one roof. And financing is a big part of that. So if you were to reach out to my team and start the onboarding process, we would introduce you to a lender, match you with a lender that would be able to get to the loan for you, assuming that, of course, that you meet the characteristics and that a loan would require. And so that lender has been vetted by JWB, has closed dozens, sometimes hundreds of loans with JWB. And they are there to make sure that your return on investment is strong and hit those numbers for your loan. But they're also there to make sure that they're living up to the standards of client service. Because if you actually close a loan right now in the lending world right now, lenders are just overrun and their client service is struggling. So for JWB, client service is really important. And so that lender has been vetted out, made sure that they're ready to uphold the standards of service that our client service team would be able to hit. And even though they're not a teammate of JWB, meaning they're not internally, they're not hired by JWB, they're not an employee of JWB. We do want to keep an arm's length transaction there. They are really aware of the standards and they're going to be a great asset for you. So we do facilitate that for you.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely necessary right now. Like lenders are so overrun. It's kind of like how when a hurricane is coming, because you start $8 million worth of construction projects a month, you always get the contractor to show up to your house to fix whatever, to prep whatever. Right now, I feel like that is happening with the lender relationships of lenders are just like chasing their tail because they're so busy, but because you provide such a volume and you have this like high quality lender pool, you get the superior service, right?
Nailed it.
Nailed it. That's what I do, bro. Greg, let me ask something, man. When you when you seemed completely befuddled by the construction prices.
Yep.
Is that because new construction pricing isn't that important to you? Is that because it's just done by somebody else and you trust that it's handled?
I'm far from the construction on my team. I see. So the way it lands on me is we look at our sales cards every single month. So I sit down with my business partners. We look at all of the property sales. We look at the sales prices. We look at all the costs. We look at the profit that was there and all that good stuff. And so for me, it takes me a minute because then I just go into my handy dandy calculator. I look and I say, oh, well, I'm guessing that this house probably costs about $10,000 to build or something like that, $120,000 to build. And I divided it by 1665. And so I don't typically think on a daily basis as far as what my price per square foot is on the building. My construction team does, and I get to focus on other things.
There you go. Rick Henning, I guess, wants a little bit of clarification when he says, what qualifies lenders for JWB? Why not use my own lender? I feel like you hit on it in the sense of they need to understand the specific rental income, cash flowing rental income property transaction, and understand all the risk mitigating factors that JWB has around all of it in order to properly assess it and make sure that they give you the proper value. I also know that there's no like kickback or anything. You guys are just evaluating them to make sure that they can get the deal closed. Is there anything I'm missing there?
You're correct with all of that. Here's something else to add that not a lot of people are aware of. Many people assume that just because a lender tells you they can get a loan done, that they can get a loan done. And the reality is that for most banks, most lenders, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And this is a challenge for you as a client because in order the originator, the person you're working with to actually get the loan going is not the end decision maker of your loan actually going through. It's the underwriter. And there's no way that the underwriter actually talks to the lender most of the time. They're in completely different parts of the world. They lock the underwriters in sealed glass doors and nobody can talk to, right? So the underwriter has rules called bank overlays that nobody else in the bank knows. Like a typical bank overlay that your originator might not know is title seasoning. Title seasoning means how long did the previous seller own the property before they sold it or they're selling it to you as the new buyer. It doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank, how great your credit score is. It doesn't matter anything. The underwriter has a list of overlays, and one of those overlays commonly is title seasoning. And if the previous seller hasn't owned the property for a year or 2 years, they're not going to do the loan for you. And you don't know this until you've dedicated time, energy, cost to figuring it out. 30 days, maybe 60 days before it actually gets in front of the underwriter. And by that time, you've sent dozens and dozens rounds of documentation. I know this firsthand because right now I'm going through a refinance on my primary residence, and going through a loan is never fun. Paying for appraisals, right? You're going down this path only to be told at the end of the day that the underwriter is not going to approve the loan for something that your originator didn't know in the beginning. And this is very common. And unfortunately, there's not a list of overlays that you can just ask your lender on the front end. The only way to identify if the lender is going to be able to close the loan is, have they closed dozens and hundreds of loans for turnkey properties in the state of Florida, right? This is the only way. So we require that clients work with our network of lenders for 2 reasons. Number one, it's a benefit for the client. It's to make sure that this is a great experience for you. You're going to get the lowest rate that you can possibly get. JWB does not get any type of incentive, referral, or kickback for recommending you to work with this lender. We just simply want the loan to go through and for you to have a great experience. And the other thing is, if I'm just thinking as an owner of JWB, property sales are how JWB keeps the light on. And 60% of our sales come from conventionally financed purchases. If we let every single lender, every single buyer choose their own lender, we would have hundreds of lenders out there. And I can guarantee you a very small percentage of those would close, and a very small percentage of those would close on time. And so it comes as it would be irresponsible for me as a business owner to let that occur. I wouldn't be doing right by our clients, by our team, by the company overall. So those are the two reasons why we do require that you work with a lender who is in the JWB network.
That makes a lot of sense, man. So speaking of lenders, we've teased this on the show, how you have this like council of lenders that give you and your partners the inside scoop. Dominic Albano has a question. What is interest rate you are seeing this week for 25% down, 20% down? What are interest rates for non-recourse loans, self-directed IRA, 50% down? Do you have those numbers and of your latest update available?
Yeah, let's actually go check it out, and let's use the spreadsheet, right?
Okay.
Paulo,
All
if you would go to the analysis conventionally financed tab.
Okay.
All right, and zoom in there. It's column H. There we go. Again, everybody can use this same spreadsheet, and you can change the interest rates, the down payment percentage and whatnot. But you can see their mortgage rate, 4.13%. It's actually rounded. It's actually 4.125% is what we're expecting to be able to get for you on your investment property, which is incredibly low. Get to lock that up for 30 years to borrow money at 4.125%. Ask yourself the question, do you think that you can earn more than 4.125%? Do you have investment options out there to help you earn more than 4.125% over the next 30 years? For most of us, the answer is yes. And that's why I love debt right now.
Outstanding, man. Let's see what else we got. Trying to sort through the better. So our old friend is back from France. Anonymous Attendé asks, do you find better ROI on older homes versus new homes?
Great question. The answer is I see the best risk-adjusted returns on investment in both. It doesn't matter if it's new construction. It doesn't matter if it's a renovation. The really cool thing is that you can get to similar returns, call it 7 to 9%, not including home price appreciation, on both. And so when you work with JWB and we get to the point of property selection with you, it's going to be really easy for us to recommend properties for you. We're going to be agnostic whether it's renovated or new construction, because our job here is to produce the best risk-adjusted returns on investment. You can get there with both. Common question is, well, don't you think that new homes are going to appreciate more than renovated homes? And my answer is no, and it surprises some people. But you got to understand, the best way for you to win in rental properties is to buy and hold for a full market cycle. If you're buying and holding for a full market cycle, this brand new construction property that you buy today will be a 10 or a 20-year-old property over the next 10 or 20 years. And that's what you need to do in order to count on home price appreciation. If you don't hold on that long, then you shouldn't be counting on it, right? Then it's speculative. But if you hold on for a full market cycle, it is. So when you look back over the data and see how home price appreciation actually works, there's really not a difference between homes that are 20 years old versus homes that are 40 years old or 50 years old, right? They are appreciating at the same rate. So if you were buying and holding a rental property today to sell 1 year from now, then I think you could make an argument that you might be able to see a premium for a new construction versus a renovated home. But if you're doing that, you're missing out on the big picture of owning rental properties. So I don't think you should do that. So the answer to the question is we love both. You get to 7 to 9% returns on renovated and new construction properties. You just get there differently. New construction properties tend to have a higher purchase price. They tend to have higher property taxes. They tend to have lower homeowners insurance costs and slightly lower maintenance costs. And you throw all those good things and those bad things together and you get to 7 to 9%. Renovated homes have lower purchase prices typically. They have lower property taxes. They have higher homeowners insurance costs and slightly higher maintenance costs. And you throw all that together and guess what? You get to 7 to 9% with the same long-term outlook on home price appreciation down the road. So we love them both. And again, if you're working with my team, go to chatwithjwb.com, set up a time to speak with my team. You're going to hear something similar. And then when it comes time to recommend properties for you, you'll probably see both as recommended for you.
Widgets, baby. You're just going down the supermarket aisle and picking out the widget for you. I love it, man. How you guys have simplified this asset so well. Greg, you did a really good job today, man. Just kind of simplifying a lot of the questions. We have awesome questions today from the audience. I'll ask one last one here from Jay Patel. He asks, how many houses can I buy? Are you just talking one property only right now?
We are not talking one property only right now. We're going to work with you. Typically for a brand new client coming on board, we're going to limit you to about 3 at the moment. And so I would recommend just talking with my team. That can change. That can change weekly here. So even in the case where, you do want to purchase multiple properties, the biggest thing is that we understand what your plan is, and that if you do want to buy more than 3 might be the number today. And then we've got a plan so that we know when inventory allows it, that we can get you to property 5, 6, 7, 8. So reach out to the team, Jay, and 3 is the number as we stand here today, right around 3. And we'll continue to build that plan out for you long-term. There
you go. Chatwithjwb.com. Lou Kresge says he's going to talk to the team on chat. Love it, Lou. Happy to hear that, man. And Onamusa Tende says, nice JWB t-shirt. JWB should send one to each customer. So little advice from the capital of France.
How would we send it to Onamusa Tende, though? We would never know who.
Well, you got to pay for that Parisian shipping. It's very special. It's very special. GC, you did a great job today, buddy. What do we got on tap for next week? I know that clients are getting a client only call on Monday. So if you're a client on this call, you have that to look forward to. I've officially been named the moderator of the client only calls too, now that I'm also a client, like the Hair Club for Men.
There you go.
And I'm looking forward to that. What do we got going on Tuesday?
We have this client only call on Monday. This is just for our private lender clients. So we really want to make sure we dedicate the time specifically to their investment. So if you're a current private lender, you'll be getting an email invitation here tomorrow to join the call. That's Monday at 12:30 Eastern time. So super excited to be there with you. Pablo and I will be there running the private lender call on Monday. And there's also a real estate update that we do for our private lenders on Monday. We just want to make sure we give them the space to be able to ask the questions. As you can see, sometimes there's not enough space to answer all those questions. So we're going to go through that with private lenders, give them an update, go through the entire, entire inventory cycle with our clients, really kind of walk them through acquisition, sales, all that good stuff. So if you're a current private lender, you're going to want to be there on Monday. For those friends of the Not Your Average Investor show who are not clients yet, guess what? We're going to do a recap of that on Tuesday. So we're going to go through mainly the real estate market update for Jacksonville. This is something that we do every single quarter. The numbers are crazy. I'm already looking at them. We did internally our team update here on Tuesday. The months of inventory numbers are crazy. As I mentioned, it's really below 1 month of inventory. I'm going to explain just what that means. I'm going to put that in context for everybody. It is exactly the way that we have seen this market going, especially as we have kind of laid out our thoughts over the last 6 months. If you guys remember, we started the year and we said that you should see higher than normal home price appreciation, even in the face of a pandemic, even in the face of foreclosure and eviction moratorium. We expected to see 8 to 10% home price appreciation year over year. That's coming true, guys. So we'll bring you up to speed on Tuesday. We're looking forward to it, everybody.
Yeah, those quarterly market update calls are often our best attended, right? So those are real informative. It is where you get to see behind and know all the JWB secrets. And if you are new, we get a couple of new folks that start sticking around, in between the last call and this call. So I don't know if Mark Larrett's been to one yet, right? Or Laura, has she been to a Q1 call? So if you're coming here today for the first time, or Jay, right? If you're coming here today for the first time, asking great questions, this quarterly update really is where you see the data flywheel of JWB in full effect and their understanding of the market. And we're going to get deep into whatever market questions you have. I think it's a really nice advantage, and it's always a great experience, man. And in between that, I hope you join us in the Facebook group, jwbfacebookgroup.com, and hang out with us and the other 2,800 not your average investors like you. And this was a great one, GC. I love the Thursday call. You knocked it out of the park, buddy. I really appreciate everybody. We had 50 plus people on the call. We still have 40 plus right now. Middle of a Thursday weekday. We don't take that for granted. You had amazing questions. We got, bombarded with questions over here that GC could add value to, man. So thank you so much for letting me be a part of that, GC. I'll give you the last call.
Thank you, everybody, for making the show super special. A couple of things just to keep note of. Thank you for all the questions that you're sending in. We want you to know that even if we don't have time to answer them here on the show, you are going to get answers from my team. My team will be reaching out to those who asked questions in the Q&A and to make sure that you have your questions answered. You also have resources in the Facebook group. I would highly recommend, if you have a question, you can ask that question at any time. And you're going to see a ton of really great responses from other savvy investors, JWB clients, and I'm in there too, to be able to be a resource for you. between Not Your Average Investor show. So thank you, everybody. This has been another awesome Thursday, and I can't wait to see you guys on Monday with current private lender clients and Tuesday for all of our friends of the Not Your Average Investor show.
Adios.